and welcome to episode 11 of Sorastro's The Lord of the Rings painting series. In this episode we're going to paint Arwen from the Shadowed Paths expansion to Fantasy Flight Games' The Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. I've loosely based my colour choices for Arwen on the beautiful character art by Magyali Villeneuve, and will be aiming to create the impression of a gentle light radiating from above. Here's a quick summary of my approach. As usual, I've primed the figure in black, followed with some zenithal highlights applied from above as described back in episode 1. Next we'll provide the base colours, and I'll be keeping things pretty dark to give me room to play with the lighting when we apply the highlights. We can then apply the highlights where I'll be creating a warm ambient light, and as usual I'll be providing some scenic elements for the base. Let's begin with the base colours. I'm going to begin by painting the face using Vallejo's Beige Red mixed with a little black. I'm now mixing in some additional black and using this to darken the eye area to create what will eventually be some dark lining for the eyes. I'm now painting the eyes themselves with some deck tan. Next I'm adding some pupils. And here I'm trimming things back with the surrounding skin tone. For the tunic and robes, I'm using a roughly equal mix of Scalecolor's Ardennes Green, Gobi Brown and flat black. I don't mind some of the zenithal highlights showing through here. For the inner top, I'm using Mojave White, darkened with a little flat black. For the cloak, I'm using an equal mix of black leather and brown leather, once again darkened with a little of the black. I'm also using this for the hanging belt. To create a dark leathery tone for the gloves, I'm mixing some black and refractive green with a little flat brown. This is quite similar to the tone of the robes, but with a more satin finish. I'm also using this for the boots. For the hair, I've chosen to use a roughly equal mix of black and dark sea blue. This can also be used for the scabbard. Finally, I'm using blue-grey pale mixed with a little black for the areas of silver, and you could of course use a metallic tone here instead if you like. I'm now applying some texture to the base using Vallejo's Dark Earth basing paste, along with some of the cork rocks we made back in episode 1. We're now ready to begin adding the highlights. I'm going to begin with the green clothing, where I'm going to firstly highlight up from the base tone to a roughly 3:2 mix of Ardennes Green and Gobi Brown. I'm then going to lighten this further with the addition of some Sherwood Green, and maybe some Mojave White to help control the saturation. This is now the pure Ardennes Green and Gobi Brown mix. I'm now adding a little of the Sherwood Green in a couple of stages, and I'll be focusing these warmer highlights more towards the upper part of the body. Here I'm adding a little of the Mojave White to increase the values further, but also to control the saturation. For small areas like this, we can simply stipple the paint on. Here I'm just playing with the idea of using slightly less saturated tones for the lower part of the model, by using more of the Mojave White and less of the Sherwood Green. These are my last few highlights. I'm now going to highlight the gloves by simply adding increasing amounts of buff to the base tone. For a leathery texture like this, I might be a little rougher and more extreme with the highlights. Here I'm just increasing the depth of some of the shadows. I'm now moving on to the cloak, where I'm going to begin by highlighting up from the base tone to a pure black leather and brown leather mix. I'll then lighten things further with the addition of some walnut, and for some selective warmer tones I'll be adding a little Iroko. Here I'm adding the walnut to the black and brown leather mix. And I'm now adding some Iroko and focusing these warmer tones on the upper part of the figure. For the white top, I'm going to first highlight up to pure Mojave White, and then to some white sands. Here I've just chosen to add some dark lining to separate the top from the skin tone. I'm now adding some white sands to the Mojave White for my final highlights. Next I'm going to highlight the skin, where I'll be mostly working up to Beige Red, and then using Ice Yellow to push the levels further. I might also add some Ivory for the extreme highlights. Here I've chosen to add a little flat red to bring some colour to the cheeks. And I'm now adding some Ice Yellow for my brighter highlights. I might thin the paint further if I want to make subtle adjustments to an area like this. I'm now adding some Ivory for my last couple of highlights. Moving on to the hair, I'm simply adding some white to the dark sea blue and black base tone. To create some interest, I've chosen to play around with adding some other tones, such as Vallejo's Violet, which I'm mixing into the blacks. And here I'm adding some ice yellow for some of the highlights. I'm also providing a quick highlight to the scabbard. For the silver details, I'm adding some ivory to the blue-grey pale base tone. Here, I'm just guessing that this is a gap where the hair might show through. I've now chosen to add some ice yellow, mainly for the gemstone. And I'm now just gently pushing the level of yellow for the gemstone, as well as some of the surrounding highlights. Next I'm dry brushing the base before applying some Agwax Earthshade as usual. We can then glue down some grass, and I'm once again using Tufts by Gamer's Grass. I like to use a mixture of grass lengths, and I'm especially fond of these tiny tufts. I'm also adding a few leaves. I'm now adding a few spots of muddy weathering to the cloak. Along with some black lining to aid definition. And finally, I'm mixing a pinkish tone to give some colour to the lips. Followed with a small highlight for the lower lip. And this completes Arwen. Thank you for watching. As always, you can find chapter links and a product list in the video description below. My very special thanks go to the kind patrons for supporting this work. If you'd like to become a patron, you can hit the Patreon link to learn more. Join me again soon as we continue painting miniatures from the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. Happy painting!